Ex-millionaires of Reddit, what made you lose all your money? You know how to end up with $1 million after a year of day trading? Start with $2 million. Go to our Wall Street bets and filter by the loss flare. My dad, not me. He made some really shrewd stock market investments after he retired. They were options on an oil refiner at a time when the USA had a real shortage of them. My dad had done a lot of research on this and studied the situation carefully. He got rich to the tune of maybe $2 million. He could have been set for life. My dad was already a really smart guy. He has a PhD in mathematics and was a highly respected big brain professional all the way back into the 1960s. However, he thought this took him to the next level. He bought a lot of newer options in the same company. I suggested to him that he diversify. Put a bunch of money into something closer to an annuity or another conservative investment that would give him plenty of income forever. I told him if he did that, he would always be rich. Well, he is pretty far from that now. I haven't said a thing about that to him since he lost everything. I did what I could, at the time, to save him from himself. But who was I? It pains me to see how it played out for him. He did a lot of things right in life. He deserved better. But there's no deserve in securities investing. Morals of this story. 1. You aren't an investment genius after your first blockbuster win. You need a track record. 2. Diversify. I watched a guy at a casino somehow get a loan against his house. About $200k and lose it. He looked suicidal. Apparently he was already in almost $50k and thought he could win it back. I got hired there. And I would leave on Friday and return Monday, and see the same people in the same clothes, who pistoned it themselves and were still sitting at the blackjack table gambling. My dad is an ex-millionaire. He's a ducking wizard at starting successful businesses. His problem is he can't let them go. He's the boss owner who never hires a manager that's not family because he just doesn't trust anyone else to run it. He drove $3 million companies into the ground because he couldn't keep up with his own success and refused to hire people to do it for him. Sugar is a hell of a drug. Hypothetical millionaire. I bought $100 worth of Bitcoin when they were about $1 each. I sold them when they were about $2.50 each and was so happy I made money from internet coins. As of the moment I am typing this, those coins would be worth $1,855,000. My alarm clock that woke me up. Not me but an acquaintance. He got caught not paying taxes and dealing in stolen goods. He spent time in federal prison and lost everything, including his wife. Crime does not always pay. Crypto millionaire. Still worth a lot. With my accounts about $850,000 today, I have a lot of XRP, but in 2017 I was worth about $3.5 million before the crash. Lowest was $300,000. I'm a hodler so I don't day trade usually. Somewhere here there's a billionaire laughing because they're an ex-millionaire too. Divorce. I was a millionaire. Got divorced which nearly sent me to insolvency. Buckled down and worked my butt off and am a millionaire. Guys, don't underestimate the pernicious impact on net worth a bad divorce can have. Gambling and spouse terminal illness. I was a multi-millionaire for 2 weeks. Then the vacation was over and we exchanged our dongs for euros. I built a business worth $3 million. Had a house worth $1.4 million. Investments worth more than $2 million. 4 nice cars. Divorce laid me low. An ex-wife. A lawyer. And a judge stripped me of at least 3/4 of that. Left me with a Miata race car. A bit of money and 51% of my company. Still had to pay alimony. I gave up. I negotiated my way out of alimony by giving up more of the company. Liquidated everything else. Bought a boat and ducked off. 26 months later I sailed back into my life and started over. I've earned enough to live a modest retirement. And that's where I am today. Don't get married boys. It ain't worth it. I've done it twice. The first time was a disaster. The second time was an annoyance. Just my opinion and experience. I'm way too drunk and shouldn't have posted. Anyway, there it is. An energy drink for Asian homosexuals. First husband was making $1 million a year. He was enjoying life, spending frivolously, but bringing in enough that it didn't matter. We divorced, but amicably. No alimony, no OSA child support. He just paid for whatever the kids needed. Then he got leukemia. He fought like hell for 3 years. The last 2 years were very expensive. It was worth it. Money won't make you happy, but the lack of it can destroy you. The kids and I can take comfort in knowing that truly, there was nothing else possible. His millions bought his kids 2 more years of dad, and I'm glad for him that he enjoyed his life while he could. We were close. Then the Great Recession hit. Lost 60% in 3 years. Just updated the balance sheet today. We're almost back. Who knows what will happen in the next 24 to 36 months though. I wasn't quite a millionaire. Was better off. Got investigated for being a kingpin. I'm not. Life ruined. Now I'm homeless and dying. I'll never financially recover from this. JPG. Technically not me, but rather my family. My great grandfather was born to a long line of vicars who had land, properties and farms. They were loaded. He was the rebel only son and swore that he would break tradition. So he joined the army, and come World War II he was shipped off to fight for Britain. While overseas, he was captured and spent a few years in a POW camp where he subsequently found Jesus. After the war, he returned, joined the clergy, and, his father having died, gave every single penny to the goddamn church, land, property and titles all, and lived off his vicar's salary. Obviously it was never mine to lose, but the knowledge that I could have been a lord with a horse and an affordable coke addiction really stings. I'd guess divorce, maybe fraud as well. Trust me, if you ever win the lotto, every person you have ever met, seems like, will show up with their hand out. If you want to test that, post on your social media that you won a lottery and see what happens. Then, let everyone know that you won $5. And, then, drop everyone who asked for money. Oxy and crack. $1,500 a day habit got me high for a few years. Then the other half was when the dealers infiltrated and took me for tens of thousands at a clip. Oh, and a sibling stealing $400k was a dent as well. It's truly a miracle I'm alive. 9 years removed and finally dug myself out and back on top. Kind of lol. A lot of people who win the lottery will blow their money on big purchases, like a house or a yacht. Then they have no money left to pay the yearly costs of those items, and they lose everything. Invest all your money in safe stocks, get a mortgage on a house, and chill the duck out if you win the lottery. I work in finance and my team and I work with all very affluent clients. I've seen so many millionaires lose it all, not from investing in the markets, but from taxes, lifestyle and poor business decisions. Once had a client who was making $50k a month, but was spending $60k a month and perpetually dipping into his investments. There were months where payments bounced because he was living a lifestyle and always wanted more. My favorite investment advice: same car, same house, same spouse. I want to answer, so I'm going to. I spent most of my money on drugs, alcohol, women and fast cars. The rest of it, I wasted. I donated my wealth to orbital dropper and highly recommend any millionaire reading this do the same. Not me, but my great grandfather started a candy company that serviced most of the Wyoming Valley in PA. My grandfather, his son, sold the company for upwards of $100 million. My mother and I are unsure of the full amount. He used the money to buy some land down in Florida, franchised a few Radio Shacks, and bought a lot of cars. During this time he divorced my grandmother and married another woman with children. Towards the end of his life, he reconnected with my mother and met me, but then developed brain cancer. He decided to cut his wife out of his will and give all of his money, still around $10 million, to my mother and her brother. Because he was bedridden, he had to have his lawyer email and print out the new will, which he would sign and mail out to the lawyer. But he asked his wife, that he was screwing over, to mail the new will, but for some reason it got lost. He died a few days later with my mother unaware the will change hadn't gone through. She paid for the funeral only to learn afterwards from her lawyer that the will was never changed. She went to confront her stepmother only to find out that she and her sons had already flown to Florida, taken the money and moved. She tried for a few years to sue, but due to state laws and lack of written evidence couldn't get the suit off the ground. And that's how my mother lost a multi-million-dollar inheritance and got stuck with a $50,000 funeral bill. I'd have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids. Probably should use the serious tag. COVID. Built a business that was given a valuation of a few million back in January, but the industry is now down 80% and I'm doing all I can to avoid bankruptcy. Not me, but a close friend's parents worked at a well-renowned American company in Houston in the early 2000s. They were really high up in the management chain and enjoyed a lot of the perks that came with their position. After sticking through thick and thin, especially during the dot-com bubble, said friend's parents were also very good in managing their money, living very frugally, and investing for their future nest egg. Unfortunately, therein lied the rub. All that investment, 401ks, extra cash, etc., was on a single pot, I believed, with all their allocation, back in 2000s or so. They have had invested close to $5.6M and was due to pull it out so they could finally retire. But a company scandal brought all that to a collapse. The company? Enron. All their money evaporated. COVID. My parents have tons of money in stocks and lost their millionaire status due to the crash that happened. I'm talking tens of thousands in a day at one point. Thankfully, with the drug trials being successful, they're starting to make back their money. Though it's still not where it was before due to the industry they have stock in being hit hard by the shutdowns. Make matters worse, my father is at 1/2 pay since he works hospitality. I got into Magic the Gathering. Betting on Ferrari this season. Not me, but my parents. Both smart people. Went to the best universities. Graduated with BAs and masters in architecture. Went on to design very high-end apartments and homes all over Queensland, Australia. Saved up enough to open a Michelin-style restaurant on the water. It was a hit. They became incredibly wealthy and this is where money started to take a toll on them. They went all out. Bought 2 penthouses in the same building and combined them into one. Owned and managed multiple high-end apartments all over the city. Bought multiple sports cars and even a yacht. Took my sister and I traveling all around the world. My life growing up was literally a model's Instagram page. But then one day a flood came. The restaurant went completely underwater and destroyed close to $1 million worth of wine, and not to mention the write-off on the kitchen. They were ruined. They had to sell everything just to cover the cost of the restaurant. They now live in a small apartment and are both still working over 70 to pay off all the loans they still owe. Word of warning: if you come into possession of a large sum of money, don't be stupid. Gave most of it away in the divorce. Took what I thought would be enough to pull a leaving Las Vegas. But Ben Sanderson had a big head start on me on the liver damage. So I outlived the money. Started over from zero 16 years ago. Halfway back. My family lost tons of money with a failed business and bad investments and ended up with tons of debt and a bad financial situation. They weren't millionaires or anything though. 12 years ago, I was making $95k as a software engineer. I was in an accident, suffered a brain injury, lost everything, and haven't worked as a programmer since then. My injury easily cost me $1 million. Edit. For anyone asking, I was a DBA, SQL server for the most part, with a dash of Oracle. I was also a whiz with JavaScript, CSS, and Cold Fusion all the way back to 1996. After my injury, I couldn't even read my own code, which was literally pristine. My great-grandparents were farmers and lived in North Dakota, in their prime. Their team and them were absolutely great farmers. This, along with some other factors, made them super rich. For an example, they owned multiple planes and even had a hangar built to store them. They also had a really nice house, not a mansion, but a really nice and large one. Well, it turns out they were really great at farming but not so much at paying taxes. My dad had over $20 million in a business with 12 locations and 3 more opening on the way. An employee who was caught selling drugs fabricated an elaborate story that he got the drugs from my dad's company and that the whole company was a front for the Mexican cartels. My dad spent a lot of time in Mexico back in the day and had a criminal record, so that was enough for the DEA to raid him on this story. They stole all the computers, terrorized the employees, and raided every one of the locations on the same day with over 300 SWAT, including a raid on his own home. He wasn't there, just his young children. They're traumatized by it. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. All papers in order. No indictments came. No case. Regardless, most of the employees and management quit due to the investigation. He had to close most locations and sell after less than a year at a huge loss just to pay for the lawyers to defend his case. The worst part is that they won't admit they've found nothing. The DA spent millions on this raid, so they've left the case open indefinitely, making it impossible for him to work in his field. His lawyers said the prosecution has privately asked him, seriously, to find something wrong that he can plead to so they can save face. He won't lie, so they won't close the case. The government took my dad's life's work, his savings, and ruined hundreds of others' lives, and we have zero recourse. My mom's second husband was a millionaire. Our family and his first family treated everything as one big family. When he got cancer, he set a very intricate and fair system. Then he appointed 3 people to oversee any emergency changes to his estate: my mom, his first wife, and her second husband. As soon as he died, they voted against my mother to throw away his whole plan and just give them themselves the money. 50-50. I was a millionaire, then I got high. How has ex-wife not been mentioned? This question requires at least one Redditor to be an ex-millionaire. Maybe you need to read about all the lottery winners that lost their money by buying and doing stupid